The Misfits, three people who got thrown into the supernatural world of the Order and everything that surrounds it forcefully. They were normal humans beforehand. They became bounty hunters and actually resent the Order for who they are. The Misfits, Chapter 4, Mission Gone Awry, Part 1.
Don't quit doing what you're doing, 'cause you're different. I know people say that you're a misfit, but that's the thing I like about you. Don't listen to all the craziness that they be spitting. You know better than to try to fit in. That's the thing I like about you. That's the thing I like about you.
My name is Dante, and I was scientifically engineered into a werewolf, and like a dozen other demon things, I had the ability to shift into other creatures that lived in the world of the supernatural. I got out of bed and I had a shower. I did not know whether I smelled bad or not, but my supernatural nose picked up some bad smelling stuff coming off of myself. I showered and then my phone started buzzing. I checked it. It was a text message with an address. I didn't recognize it though. I shrugged, and I threw on a pair of shorts and a jacket. The less clothes I wore, the better, due to the fact that my shifting can usually tear through clothes. I stepped outside, and I could tell Logan and Sophia were in their apartment still. I decided to do some exercise around the car park, then finally, what after felt like hours, Logan and Sophia were awake and getting ready. I walked back into my apartment to grab my water bottle, and I walked out. At the same time, the other two were also leaving their apartments. "All right?" I asked. "Morning," Logan nodded. "Guess I'll see you boys tonight." Sophia grinned. We all walked our separate directions. I walked for like an hour or so, till I reached a small forestry park. I checked my phone, and the map app told me that the address was at least a mile within the forest. I shrugged, and I started walking through the trees. I then picked up my speed and started running through the forest. Twigs and dried leaves breaking underneath my shoes. I stopped as a disgusting and very distracting smell filled my nose and made my eyes water. "A demon," I muttered under my breath. I took one step, and then something made a high-pitched wailing sound. It filled the sky. I looked around and saw nothing. I unzipped my jacket, took off my shorts and my shoes, and left them by a tree with my water bottle. In the forest naked, and I was rather cold. I then started shifting. My bones broke and reformed. My muscles tore, then fused back together. My body stretched as I shifted into my werewolf form. I stood tall and took a deep breath. The smell intensified my werewolf senses. I ran through the forest, the dirt exploding from the impact of my monstrous feet. I leapt forward and cut through the trees, and I landed in a clearing. I stood there, looking around, till I saw something. A being walked up to me, a strange humanoid, with purple wrinkly skin, with a bald head, and it wore a long cloak. "I wonder how long until someone sends something to kill me," the being said. Its mouth did not move. "You're in my head," I said in my mind. "Yes, I am a telepath," the demon replied. "And you're a demon?" I retorted. "A Shino Nara demon, to be exact," the demon said with a chuckle. "Why are you here in this forest?" I asked the demon. "Oh, I live here," the demon told me. "I'm sure you are just a safe little demon, living an innocent life in the forest," I sneered. "I only steal one child every 13 years, the demon said. His mouth did not move when he spoke, but he did smirk after making that mental comment. "You eat children," I barked. "Oh yes, they are so delicious, especially if they are before the teenagehood," the demon said with a chuckle. "How have you hidden yourself so well?" I asked with curiosity. "I can trick the weak-minded. To them, I'm invisible," the demon told me. "Someone knows your location. I've been paid to kill you," I told the demon. I promise you now I will live to see tomorrow," the demon said. "I'll make you swallow those words," I growled. I leapt forward, my claws extended and my teeth bared. I swung my claw at the demon. He raised his hand and I stopped in midair. I floated there for a second, suspended. I could not move. I could only breathe and move my eyes. I could feel my muscles tensing, trying to break free. "How does it feel, being in such a big, strong creature, and yet I can play you like a child's toy?" the demon mocked inside my head. Then he flicked his wrist and I went flying back, and I crashed into a tree. I dropped to the ground. My big, hairy werewolf body thudded. I shifted back into my human form and I stood up ever so slowly. The demon gazed at my naked body. "You know, I haven't eaten a werewolf in some centuries. Maybe I could have had a starter this time round," the demon hissed, gazing at me. I stretched and my back clicked. As I started shifting into something else, I needed the upper hand. My skin became scaly as I started shifting. "Oh my, you are more than a werewolf. I thought you smelled rather odd." "You are man-made?" the demon questioned. "I am, yes," I chuckled back. My body stretched and reformed into my were-lizard form. I stood there once again as a 12-foot beast. "You are interesting," the demon sighed. I ran at the demon again and jumped up and swung my claw once more. The demon repeated his actions and raised his hand, and once again I stopped in midair, floating there. The demon laughed, this time out loud. He walked up to my lizard face and leaned in. "Did you not learn anything just now?" the demon mocked in my head. Then he waved his hand up and down. I was slammed into the ground. I raised into the air once again and floated there, eye level with the purple demon. "I cannot wait to try your flesh. I might have you shift between your forms, so I can have myself a bit of a on-the-menu type of thing. In one body," the demon chirped with glee. He leaned in and took a big sniff. I started coughing, forcing my demonic lizard form's stomach acids to my throat, and I spat the liquid at the demon's face. The acid melted the skin off the demon's face, and the demon howled out in pain, gripping at his melting facial features. I fell to the ground. My quick assault to his skin must have broken his concentration. I landed on all fours, and with a quick spin, I spun around and swung my large reptilian tail, tripping up the demon. He landed on his back. I jumped up on top of him, and I sank my claws into his ribcage. He then headbutted me, and with one hand he thrust it out, and I went flying up into the air. I clung onto the trees, and scaled across the trees, and leapt over from one tree to another. The demon stood and raised both hands. Rocks lifted into the air. Then he threw out his hands, and both the rocks flew at me. I jumped from one tree to another, dodging one of the rocks. I then jumped forward and weaved over the second one. I landed on the ground and lashed out my tail once more. The tip of my tail wrapped around the demon's ankle, and with a quick yank, the demon face-planted the ground. I jumped on top of the demon and slashed at his torso. His thick pink blood spewed out everywhere. I then opened my mouth, and I wrapped my jaw around his head. I bit down hard. His skull broke in between my teeth. I felt his brain explode. I pulled hard and ripped the demon's head off. I then spat out the demon's head. I looked around and I watched as some of the trees faded away. I walked up to the new clearing that was presented to me. I assumed, by the fact that I killed the psychic and the selected trees were nothing but an illusion made by the demon to hide this small wooden cabin that I found. I walked around the hut. It was small, and it smelt old. The trees that disappeared must have vanished after I killed the being. Then, as I walked around behind the hut, I found a big pile of small bones. They were clean. I couldn't even smell a drop of blood on them. He had eaten everything but the bone. I shifted back into my human form and walked into the wooden hut and looked around. I found nothing out of the ordinary. It was not lived in for sure. It was very normal. It must have been a part of the lie, the image he gave mortals. If they did manage to stumble upon the hut, they would have just found a normal hut. I walked back outside and started walking back to the demon's remains. I walked up to the demon when suddenly there's a big metallic clicking noise. Then a big bear trap snapped shut, clamping onto my leg. I howled out in pain. My echo roared through the forest. I dropped to the floor. Tears filled my eyes, and my voice howled out so long it broke. I tried to grasp at the metallic teeth and pulled the metallic jaw open, but it did not budge. I could see the rust on the mechanism, telling me that it was rather old. I laid there naked, blood seeping out of my wound. The pain was rather intense. I punched the ground in anger when I realized I'd left my phone in my shorts pocket, and my shorts were left on the outskirts of the forest where I had entered. I tried to shift into any of my demonic forms, but the metallic teeth penetrating my muscle and the intense pain stopped me from doing so. My body would not comply to its command. I tried to keep my eyes open. I found it hard to stay awake. Blood had stained the grass, and mud, red. I could feel my eyes rolling into the back of my head. I silently prayed for Logan and Sophia to come find me. I eventually gave up fighting, and I lost consciousness.
This podcast is a production of the Three Ranger Bros Studios, in association with Zio to Hero, the podcast.
And there we have it, guys. Thank you very much for listening to this story. If you've enjoyed this story, then you might want to check out all of my Tiger Tales channels. I'm going to give you a quick rundown. There's Tiger Tales, the first and the original. This is a place where you'll find stories and fanfictions diving into all sorts of fandoms, including Power Rangers, Pokemon, The Walking Dead, Marvel, DC, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and so much more. Tiger Tales The Lost Stories follows the same suit, but all the stories on that channel are in the first person perspective. Then there's Tiger Tales Game Over, a channel where all of the storylines are related to video games in some way or another. Then we have Tiger Tales X, where I write official crossovers that aren't needed but are very wanted, and crossovers I thought might work. Then, of course, we have Tiger Tales Mysterious Origins. This is the YouTube channel dedicated to my own original stories. All the stories on this channel are original and my own, and it also answers questions on certain characters throughout my stories, like William Cranston, Mr. Pocket, and Ace from the Color Matrix. If you've enjoyed these storylines, then please make sure you check out the following podcasts. Storytime with Cosplay Dude 637, Power Rangers Universe 19, Sailor Moon E, and The Order. And make sure you check out 2 YouTube channels, Nostalgia Time and the One Piece audio drama. They are all written and read to you and edited by Cosplay Dude 637, my parabatai and best friend. Then make sure you check out the podcast Nerds Through Comics, which is directed by Mark, the Red Corner Ranger. This is where he adapts comic books into audio dramas and also uploads his own original Power Ranger storylines. We are the Three Ranger Bros Studios, a collaborative project, and we are all voice actors and helpers of each other's stuff, so make sure you go check us out. We're in association with the Zio to Hero podcast, so a huge shout out to Billy and Jim, the co-hosts, and of course the podcast and the community that they lead. If we're shouting out podcasts, I have to shout out Jared, the host of If You Give It Down a Podcast. Make sure you check it out because he interviews some fantastic guests, from wrestlers to voice actors and the such. And of course, if we're talking podcasts, I have to mention my own, the Tiger Nexus podcast, where I interview content creators and geeks alike. A huge shout out to all my supporters and followers, my voice actors, the people who co-write my chapters, and the sorts. So huge thank you, and of course, a big shout out to A-Crown, Specifically him, because he helps me a lot with some of my stories, specifically the Color Matrix and the chapters that go on Tide Tales Game Over. Thank you very much guys for listening. Now don't forget to subscribe to the channels, like the videos, and let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. With that being said, I shall see you guys in the next one.
That before we can...
Don't touch my Pringles.